Hello and welcome. The purpose of this video today is to give you a rundown on a bit of a tutorial on how to build a form in eFRS. It'll be a little bit in depth, but not too much. It should take about 20 minutes. And yeah, by the end of it, you should be able to build most any form that you need for your organization in the eFRS system. If you're not familiar about what eFRS is or what it can do for you, jump on www.efrs.io or check out some of the other videos on YouTube to give you a bit more of a rundown. Okay, so let's get into it. So first things first, we're on the main screen. Jump onto form management. If you don't have the form management menu item, then you probably don't have permissions. Have a chat with your administrator, get them to give them some to you so you can start creating some forms in the app. Okay, so you've got your list of forms here. You can edit some of your previous ones. The middle button is cloning. The last one there is to delete a form. But what we want to do today is we're going to create a new form. Okay, so first things first, we can give the form a demo. So we'll give the name, demo form. There's some permissions that you can do with the forms. These will probably be the sort of thing you think about at the end. Let's go through it now. Okay, so with each form, you can have them restricted to groups. So groups are probably roles within your organization, but you may have different groups depending on what people do. So in this case, we have administrators and administrators of the eFRS system. We have workers, and we've got, say, a manager group. Okay, so in that though, we can restrict the form to only be visible by certain users. We can also email every copy of the form that is ever submitted to a particular user. So let's say we've got HR safety people or payroll that you're using it for. And make sure that no matter what, no matter who they are, there will be an email get sent to them. Each form will come out with a PDF as well as a text version embedded in the email. So it's easy to read, but also easy to send, an archive a copy of the form. There is also within eFRS, there is an ability to set up user supervisors. So we can make it so that the user supervisor always gets submitted the form. That can be good if you've got a form that sort of covers the whole organization. You want one universal set of input that everyone's got access to, but you really want to make sure that supervisors are always aware of it. A case like this would be something like a workplace health and safety incident. So you'd probably have like an overall workplace health and safety team and would get emailed a copy as well as the user supervisor. So that, people are only getting notified of things that are important to them. The header image URL is just an image that you can attach to the top of the form just to give it some branding if you're going to be sending it out to external stakeholders. And finally, some page settings. So your forms can have multiple pages. In this case, we've only got one right now, but if we jump on that one page, we can make it so that even individual pages within the app, you can allow people to be able to view those pages or even allow them so they can either see that but everything's read-only or have edit permissions as well. So users can also edit those forms. Okay, so that's the basics of setting up a form. We're now here in the actual form builder. One of the cool things about eFRS is that you build the form entirely on the device. This is an iPad mini. It is compatible with iPhones, Android tablets as well as Android phones. I do recommend building a form on an iPad. I think it's a little bit more of a comfortable experience. We don't currently support building a form on the desktop because we really want you to know what you're going to get. We don't want to have a situation where you build it over here and it doesn't look right over there. So what you see is what the users will get at the end of the day. Okay, so let's start. Let's create a new page. So we can have two pages. We're going to just walk through the fields one after the other and we'll make a form out of this. So now we've got page 1 and page 2. We go back, jump over to the form settings again, and we can give page 1 a different name. So we could, have basic data that we're collecting. You've got your view permissions, your edit permissions, and everything else. We're just going to allow everyone to be able to access this. So we've got basic data, and let's say we've got let's call this one, admin data or something. We're not really going to make any great distinction while we do the video, but just to give you an idea. We changed the form name. So we'll change that back to demo form. Okay, go to page 2, and then from page 2 we can change the name. So we're going to call it admin data. Okay. No worries. Okay, so that's it. You can create pages. If you want to put a field on one particular page or the other, you can just select the page and then you can put the field down. So in this case, we're going to start over here. We're going to start with putting a header down. Now, a header is just a basic field which allows you to sort of divide up parts of the form. So you've got a really long page on a form, you can have different sections within it. So we'll just call it section 1. Again, not doing anything particularly fancy. We can hide or we can show it. We can also set its position, but in this case, that's all we're doing. So we've got section 1. And then we've got one of the most basic form elements, just a plain text field. So let's have a quick chat about the parts and what's actually here. I know it might look a little daunting, but it really is designed to be fairly self-explanatory and you can't break anything. So it's well worth having a play. Okay, so what we're going to do, we'll have, let's say number input, we're going to call it. So we're going to make it a number field. You can put a placeholder, so we could do like, number 1 or, do something like this or whatever, this is just something, a prompt for the user. Sorry. Okay, we can make the field required, so they have to fill in some value before they can submit the form. We can make it read-only so that the users then can't, edit what data goes into the field. We can hide it or we can show it, and we can have show and search. Now, show and search is useful for some sort of it's like, I guess an index field is what we'd describe it, but some sort of reference data that you would need to see at a glance. These are like the columns that you're going to see when you're scrolling through the data and you're interested in getting more info. So it could be user's name. It could be let's say a site, if you're looking for all items at a certain site, or it could just be even the date, the date that something was done. So in this case, we're not interested in that. So we'll leave all of those exactly as they are. In fact, let's make it required. Okay. So these other advanced settings here are more sort of the sort of things that make this an app. So we can turn autocorrect on and off. In fact, we don't want it for a number field, really. We don't want it to be a multi-line field, so you can enter in more than one line of data. The select text on focus is if you go and make a change and then you want to go back and you click it, it will automatically highlight all of the text. That's really good for being able to quickly clear out the data in the field, but not great if you're trying to edit something. So we'll leave that as no. Max length, so we don't want it to be more than, say, 3 characters long. The keyboard type, in this case it's numeric. Oh, sorry. Select it properly. There we go. Auto capitalize. We don't need any auto capitalization. If you don't want to change any of these fields to start with, though, you don't have to. We're going through it more at the moment, step by step, for the purposes of the video. But at the end of the day, you can quickly make a field, call it number input, click back, and that's as hard as it is. So let's do that right now. So as hard as it is to make a new field, so we've got to call this one number 2. It may not do every little thing that you want it to do and behave in the way that you want to have, but the idea is that you can fine-tune it as much as you want it to do. So there you go. So we've got 2 fields. We've got number input and number 2. Let's jump on over to quick clicks. These are probably one of the most common fields you're going to be using. Think of it like a checklist. Actually, in fact, we've created it. Let's just quickly go back and have a look at it. In this case, we can just select yes or no. But we can jump back over here and we can set those options and we can do it all. So let's call this, we're gonna make sort of, I guess, a risk form. That's one of the most common purposes I see eFRS being used for. So let's call it weather conditions. There we go, use the autocorrect. Is it required? Yes, we make it required. We don't want it to be read-only. We don't want it to be hidden. We don't want it to be shown. Oh, let's have it shown in the search. Okay, so let's list a couple of them. Obviously, these could be doubled up and might not be an exhaustive list, but let's start with sunny. So raining, overcast. Okay, well, let's do nighttime. Okay, so obviously night could have probably a couple of combinations of that. Anyway, but there we go. So that's that. We can have it as either a quick pick, which has these options here. That's fine, except on a phone, you will notice that, it does allow you to scroll side by side, but users often don't. They're not aware that they can. In a case where it's more than just a yes, no, or not applicable type field, I generally recommend going to some sort of a drop-down list like that. Oop. Okay. One of the things you'll also notice is that because we've selected something here, which we had selected yes, so what we're going to do is we want that to just show, we don't want to have any defaults. And it probably is worth noting now, if you click here and you type in something, then that's how you set a default for a field. So in this case, we want the default to be sunny. We want it to be automatically filled with that. We can do that. If while you're building the form, you accidentally put a default in and you want to get rid of it and you can't, so in this case up here, we can just delete it. That got rid of the default. But in a case where you've got something like this where you have to have something picked, The trick is you click on there and you click over here and click clear default value. And then that'll clear that out. Okay, so that's your quick pick type thing. Okay, let's move on to date and time. So date and time, similar sort of thing. So let's call it against workplace health and safety. So let's have an incident date. There we go, incident date. Okay, we want to have that shown in search. We don't want someone to be able to put an incident in more than 7 days in the future. Actually, we don't want them to have it in the future at all. Maybe, no. In the past, we don't want it 7 days in the past. So we can do something such as we want it to be defaulted to today, just for user, make it easy for the users. We want it to be required, yes. We don't want it to be hidden. Now, down here with the data type, this is probably the most important part of this. You can set the date, make it date or time. So in this case, if you want to get the date and the time, you create two fields. You create a date field, and then you click on date or time, and you create a time field. In the future, we are going to have a joined up version of that, but for now, that's how we do that. Set now button, I'll just quickly give you a demo of that. So we click it to yes, and we jump on over here, and you can see how it's just got a button to say set date. And the purpose of that is that it will only allow you to have the current date on the app. So the user has to click it so that they have it set date, and then they can't manipulate it, forward or back. So it's in this case, that's not what we want. We just want to have a date selector. Okay. So that's the incident date. So let's jump on over now to text blocks. Now, text blocks seem probably like the most boring field, but it's probably one of the most interesting and one of the ones I've seen the most interesting work come out for. You can use it for prompts, but you can also use it to generate output as a report. So realistically, all it is just text. So we'll have high risk. Let's just do a simple sort of high and low risk kind of form. High risk. Let's say stop work immediately. Immediately, and that's not going to fix itself without 3 there. There we go. Stop work immediately. Okay, so it's an important field to have. We're going to have it, so currently we'll have it hidden as yes. We'll have the border field to red. We're going to make text red, so it's all going to be there. We'll notice though, even though we've set hidden to yes, it's still shown in here. One of the things is we have to make sure that the fields are obviously shown so that you can manipulate them. But when you go to fill it in, currently this field will be hidden and the user won't be able to see it. Okay, so right now that there is hidden, but what we want to do is we want to have it show when we have it determined that it's a high risk incident. We'll get to that in a minute, but we'll create another little one just for the moment to make it low risk, and we'll make it green. Low risk, and we go okay to proceed. Obviously, this isn't a real world example. Okay. Cool, so we'll make it green too, because it's nice and it's okay. Give it a green go sign. So right now we've got both of those. We've also made it hidden so that we can't see the thing. And it'll be hidden by default. Okay, so all of these values that you do put over here, these are all default values. And we'll get to it in a minute where we can actually start manipulating those values based on other input within the form. Let's quickly just get through the other ones here. These ones are all pretty self-explanatory. The data up the top's the same, but it's a cool little signature field. You can get the user, they can have a signature. If you've got like a third party we need to collect some data from, we want the location, so this will get the GPS location. Important to see resolving address, yes or no. So if we click yes, then it will try and use Google reverse lookup to basically say, well, this GPS location is at this address. May not always be perfect, should be pretty close. You get obviously closest. Otherwise, you click no, and that will print out the raw GPS coordinates. So if we leave it as yes, that's a bit more human readable and a bit better for people. Actions. So actions are a cool little field. Actions allow you to define workflows, allow you to change the status of the form and assign the form or responses to different users. So in this case, we can say submit for approval. If we've got to say I have some sort of approval situation. And in this case, we want to change the status to waiting for approval. So when you get a status field, what it will do, it's just a button, and you click on that button and it'll say submit for approval, and it will change the status of the form to waiting for approval. What we can also do is we can then assign it to a group. So let's say in this case, this is often used for some sort of leave requests or overtime or something like that. Anyway, so we want to send it off to payroll. In this case, we haven't got a payroll group. We do it for manager groups. So we'll submit it to manager groups. We don't want to assign it to an individual user within the company, though we can. And unassign all is what you would do. So we'll do this in a moment. So we'll leave that and we'll leave it where it is. Cool. So at the moment we've got submit for approval. Well, let's create another one. So in this case, I'm going to have unassign all is yes. Okay. And we want it to, when we want this label to say approved. Okay. So once a user has approved it, we're going to change the status to nothing because we can change the status to approved. Actually, that's probably the better way to go. Or mark approved should be the label up here. Okay. So in this case here, we can make it hidden or whatnot. We do want it to be hidden, but we want it to be hidden based on the other sort of logic. So in this case, though, the logic probably won't work. We should move it to the second page. So what we'll do, we'll chuck this back here. There's a funny little quirk with the data. If you haven't actually got anything on the second page, and we've got move it after, because you'll notice that's how we do the positioning. If you need to get something on a second page for the first time and you've created it over here, what we do is we just do that. We put a dummy field over there, select the position, and we'll notice how over here we've got admin data as the prefix, that's page 2. And then we want it to be after that. So now it's not on this page anymore, it's now over here. So we can mark it as approved. So what we want to do now, we're going to delete this dummy field. There we go. And now we've got admin data, or I guess we could call this approval. We don't want to go back out here. Now back to form settings. We're going to go to admin data. We're going to change it from admin data. We're going to change it to approvals. Okay, now what we want, we only want managers and administrators to be able to view this page. And we only want managers to be able to do the approvals. So we're going to do that. So now we've got a cool little scenario where unless you're a manager or in a manager role, you can't click mark approved. The users don't even know that page exists, who are filling in the form, but they can then go in there, they can click mark approved, and then the field value will then go and change. It will change the status of the form. Okay, last two forms, we're getting there, so we don't want to cancel. We're going to go back to basic data. All right, so back to what we're doing. So we've got a calculated field. So what we want to do with a calculated field, now this is really, it's one of the most advanced fields within the app, and something that we can't dip into, and I probably couldn't even much give you a tutorial on it. What it takes is JavaScript input. There are a few libraries available to you. It's not something we're going to cover really in this video, and generally it's something that you would come back to us to do. So in this case, you would do something where you wanted to calculate the difference between two dates. If you wanted to do some advanced math based on a bunch of inputs, or you wanted to calculate some scores and then add some more data together. This here gives you the flexibility to be able to do almost anything or any sort of output within the app, but definitely isn't for most lay people. So what we will do though, well, it's like I said, it's got an Excel sort of interface. Like I said, it's JavaScript behind the scenes, but it will take some stuff. So let's add these two numbers together. That's just as a simple thing. Actually, we'll multiply them by each other. So what I've just done, actually, don't go ahead. So what I've just done, I've just gone to the field that I'm interested in getting its info from. You'll notice down the bottom corner there's a little field ID 2. When I click that, that'll add the data, the little reference I need to the clipboard. So it will do that. And now what we can do is we can jump on over here. Let's see if we can find it. There it is. So we're going to do that one. We're going to do input number field, and we're going to multiply it by this. So that's number 3. That's handy. This is an area of the app that's going to get some more work coming up. So we're talking about some of those date calculations, that comes up fairly frequently. So we're going to be putting in a specified simple calculation fields for dates, and a specified simple sort of calculation fields to add two numbers together. One of the things we also see a lot is where people have these fields and they use the output of the field then to display some of the other data. So we're talking about like the high risk and low risk business. That's what you would do sometimes when you have a calculated field, and we'll call it calculated field, is you might want to move it off to another page. And the idea of moving it off to another page is like we saw just a moment ago, we can hide and show its values and we can use it so only administrators can see the content, but the users, they're not shown all that data when they're trying to do it. It's really good for validating that the inputs and the outputs and the calculations are right, but it's probably a little bit advanced for what we're doing right now. Anyway, so that'll do a cool little thing. We're gonna multiply those two numbers together. We're gonna get some data out. If those numbers are text, it hasn't got any things around it to stop it from doing it. It'll just throw an error. Anyway, and finally we'll get to the score field. This is the newest addition to eFRS, and it's a pretty cool little field. So this allows you to build risk matrices without any programming at all. So where previously we would have had to use a calculated field, we're now just using this. So what we can do, we can get either the mean of the values or the sum of the different fields. So what we do is we've got those two. We've got this one here. We've got weather conditions. Let's create a new field because we need multiple ones, and we'll have a yes and no. So we'll say yes. We'll make that a score of 5. We're going to give this a score of 0. Right. So what we've just done, we've gone and created the new QuickBig. We have gone and edited the options, and we've given them on this little score thing over on the side that info. The other bits there are up and down. That's obviously going to change the order of things, and the trash will delete that item. So there we go, and we'll do, are you doing risky work? Cool. Okay, all the other fields really aren't necessary in this case. We're happy to leave it as a quick pick because it's just a yes or no. We do want to set its position, and we want to set it after weather conditions. Okay, so now what we've got here, we've got weather conditions, which has got a drop-down list of the different weather conditions and are you doing risky work, and they've got scores assigned to them. So in the weather conditions, we probably want to have different scores, different risk scores associated with the various items here. So if it's sunny, we want to have a score of nothing. There's no additional risk added. If it's raining, it's probably a fair bit of risk, say. If it's overcast, it might have lower visibility, but it's not too bad. At night time, let's say that's maximum risk because you can't see anything. Okay. So now what we've got is we have weather conditions and we have are you doing risky work? And from that, we're going to generate a score, a risk score. So we come down the bottom here to score. So we've got to select the fields we want to have included. So we're selecting both weather conditions and are you doing risky work? In this case, because we've got a scale of 0 to 5, we're going to get the mean. So we're going to work out what's the average risk. Is it high? Is it low? Because some things might offset other things and whatnot. Or you could just do a sum. Look, it'll be up to you. This is not this is a risk tutorial. But you can do either of them, and there's a fair bit of flexibility there. Right, so now what we want to do, remember how I created these two up here, the high risk and low risk? Right, so let's jump on here, and we're going to hide and show those fields based on the score. Let's move the score, actually. We'll set it to just after are you doing risky work. Okay, so now what we've got, so we've got the score there. Actually, maybe do it after incident day. No, actually, we can do this. You can also use these little guys on the side if you just want to put them up and down. You don't need to do that other reordering. So now we've got the score, and we've got high risk and low risk. The score doesn't have to live there. It could live anywhere on the form, or we could move it to the second page if you didn't want to show it. In this case, we'll leave it there. So we've got high risk. And so what we want to do is, at the moment it's hidden, but we want to add some rules. And this is the last little bit, and some of the thing that'll make this eFRS more powerful than most systems you can use, but also still keeps it pretty easy. If we jump on add rule, we want to change the setting of this field that we're in and make hidden. We want to set that to no. We want the field to be shown. And what we're going to do is we're going to add a condition. So when the score, where is it? Score is greater than or equal to 2.5. Let's say it's about a scale of 0 to 5, right? So when the score is that, then we want to show that first field, this high risk one. However, when the score is less, we want this one to be shown. So we're going to make hidden, we make it no, so we want it to be seen. Then we click on field, we go find the score again, and then we want it to be equal when the score is less than 2.5. We're not going greater than or less than or equal to 2.5 because then we'll have a case that if it is 2.5, both fields will be shown. So there we go. Cool. And now that's some basic programming. We can now give the users immediate feedback about whether they should continue work, discontinue work. We can also use this sort of thing though to then prompt for more fields. So if you have a situation, let's say we want to have if a high risk is shown, the same as the 2.5 thing, we can make the signature required. So we'll set required to equal yes when the score is greater than or equal to 2.5. So when the score is greater than or equal to 2.5, then the signature is required. We can do that. We can also make it so that it's hidden by default, the signature, because we don't want them to do a signature before that. And we do the same sort of thing. So we set hidden to equal no, we want it to be shown when the score is greater than or equal to 2.5. 2.5. Cool. So that's that. And off we go. We've now gone and done some programming. So let's save this form and let's have a play with it. Okay, so what we're going to do now, this is this field, you can see demo form down the bottom. Let's go and fill it in. Okay, and here it is. So currently the risk is less than 2.5, so it's got low risk. We could do some other things as well, where we can have both the conditions where we need to make sure that the value has been set. But at the moment, that's what we have. It's got the current address, which is next door, to be fair. If we can click on the little map button, it'll open up the maps to show you where we are. That's fine. Okay. Anyway, so now we go back. And we've got our number inputs and the calculator field. So let's start filling it in. Let's say we wanted to do, remember we're doing that multiplication, so we'll do 5 by, say, 3. Now, down the bottom, the calculator field's 15. Now, we could hide and show things based on those number fields, just like we're doing with the scores. Weather conditions, let's say it's sunny. We're not doing risky work, so the score's still 0. But if it's raining, now suddenly the average of that's come up to 2. We go to overcast. It's 1. It's not doing any risky work. Night. Suddenly, we've now got not doing any risky work, but it's nighttime. So in this case, no one would ever be allowed to do work at nighttime. But anyway, here we are. So that's that. We can select the dates of the incidents, so it's got the restrictions that we imposed about when the dates could happen that are in there. The signature was left there by default, so we know how to clear that out now. And over here we've got approvals. So now because I'm in the admin group, I'm able to actually see and do things here. But anyway, nonetheless, we can now submit it for approval. You see that's waiting for approval. Any users now who are in the manager group will get pinged with a push notification to say there's a form there waiting for you to do something about it. And then that field will then they will have to then handle that. And that's basically it. There is some other cool stuff here with exporting and other use, but like I said, we're going to try and keep this focused on building a form and give you a sort of a work through in the whole form building. Anyway, but nonetheless, I think that's everything we need to show. Oh, there was some required stuff, but I think we've covered all of the required fields. Yep, it's going to save, and that's now being submitted to the system, and all of the emails and appropriate stuff's been done. All right, thank you very much.